Hey gang, Alan here. Going to talk to you about Material Shader Variant Makers, a new feature in the Material Manager repo. So if you're here, you're probably familiar with shaders. Um, as you know, shaders can have keywords. Keywords can turn on and off different pieces of code, right? And they do that by sort of having multiple versions of the same shader sort of compiled out flat, and then it just sort of hops between shaders in secret. Uh, Something like the Foliage Renderer Deluxe shader has lots and lots and lots of features. This can cause issues, right? As you sort of toggle features on and off, like, oh, winter's coming, I'm going to turn the frost on and start animating those properties in. Your shader's going to change to a new shader. All your materials are going to get switched to that thing. If it's not preloaded, it's got to load that big shader. And sometimes you get like a little bit of a hitch or a flash. Sometimes everything turns cyan, that kind of thing. We want to avoid that whenever possible, right? Unity kind of has a solution. So I'll talk you through that real quick, and then we'll see where it falls down. So we'll go up to our Create menu, and we'll make a shader variant collection. And we'll say Terrain Variants. Give it a name. Cool. Now we're going to add a shader. Okay, we've got to pick a shader. We're just going to grab one. What's a good example here? Just grab a nature manufacturer. All right, so we grabbed our shader. Now we hit this little plus button, and then you gotta pick the right keywords. Um, there, and then check the ones you care about, and then click add, and then keep doing that until you have all the combinations right. That's really tricky. And especially for something like the deluxe shader where you probably have millions of combinations, right? But you only need like 3, but which 3, right? And that can be very tricky because keywords are, named by the shader author. You maybe don't know them. It's sort of a pain to dig them up. Sometimes they're not named exactly right? Like frost on frost, but maybe frost isn't named that. Maybe it's named overlay or something else, right? In the code that wouldn't be user facing. So that could be really, really tricky and gnarly. Let's just get rid of that. That's not going to work, right? Now, normally we'd go into our project settings and graphics, and then we'd assign this down here under preloaded shaders. This will make sure that all of our shaders are saved in memory. But again, we can't afford to load millions of combinations because we'll be crushed. It's too much. The text alone would be too much, right? But we want to have like the few that we really care about loaded already. And you can load a variant collection directly, but if you just want to have it preloaded when the app boots, that's your strat. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do the better workflow, which is using DWD Material Shader Variant Maker. We'll call this Terrain Variant Maker. All right. Now what this is going to do is this is going to populate our shader variant collection for us using the materials in our project that are set up the way we want them in specific folders that we care about and only the shaders we care about. And it will just figure it out for us, which is exactly what we want to do. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to assign our variant collection. It gives you a little warning there that's like, hey, nothing will work if you don't do this. So we're going to do that. It gives you some info here. And then we're going to add a target shader. And so we'll drag our Foliage Shader Deluxe in. Cool. We don't need to click Find Mats yet. We'll go to Search Folders, and now we can specify folders in the project that we want to scrape for materials. So I've set up a little example material here. So we'll go ahead and pick that Assets JBooth folder. And then we can hit Find Mats here, or we can hit Refresh. Refresh will just like wipe the list and rebuild it, which is great if you've like made a bunch of changes to this. That's like usually the button you need to push. And then beyond that, you'll just click Find Mats or Refresh as you make new stuff or add new stuff or remove stuff. If you remove something, it'll peel those things out of the list and so forth automatically. So we'll hit refresh, and it has found our material. Now, if we don't put anything in this search folder array, it will scrape the entire project, which might be great. That might be what you want, but if you've got tons of assets, that can get really slow. So consider yourself warned. It does pop up a warning up here. Maybe I should move that warning down here by the search folder. You're fine. You'll figure it out. And then finally, we'll hit append materials to collection. It'll turn yellow. This button will turn yellow if it thinks you're out of sync. So it was yellow there because it knew we had changed our materials array. So it wanted us to click that, and now it's turned back to gray, which is fine. Now, if we go look at our variants over here, it's already pulled combinations that it thinks we care about, right? Based on what the settings of this material are. So we're done. So if like in our example case, we would want to go in here and we want to say like frost example. We'd come in here to frost settings. We'd make sure we have frost turned on. We'd set our mask mode to like whatever we care about. We're going to do it based on height. And then we'll just save project to make sure that that's all serialized nicely. Then we'll go over to our variant maker. We'll hit refresh. It found the frost. We'll hit append. And now we have more combinations that we care about already populated. So all of our shader settings that we need are ready to go, right? Now, right, in this case, these don't have to be the exact shade, like the exact materials that you're going to work on. Those don't have to be what's assigned here. They can be, right? Like I've used this a lot in projects where like I have a whole bunch of materials for a level, right? And like our level gets loaded as like one big scene, and then when we're done, it gets completely unloaded and we go back to the menu, that kind of thing. So I would have a variant collection for each level, right? And as part of the load sequence, we would make sure that the variant collection was warmed up, and then everything would spawn, and then whatever animation or keyword changing or whatever we needed to do during play would happen, and then we would unload the variant collection and so forth. So in that case, I was using the actual materials in use in the level as my references, plus any additional combinations I was going to need to use as sort of like stubs, which this frost could be a stub for us, right? To just be like, hey, make sure you get me the combinations I care about. So I've preset one up with the keywords the way I want to, but I get to work on it like it's a material. I don't have to worry about knowing the keywords. I don't have to worry about knowing all the right combinations. I just set it up the way I want it to look at the end, and I plug it in here, and you're good to go. So that's it. Now this is assigned in our project settings already. Like we never have to come back here. Terrain variance is now always correct. We just need to make sure as we make material changes, we come in here to our maker and hit refresh and append. You can make sure this is correct as part of your build pipeline. It may do that automatically. I can't remember. I may have already written that code. But if it's not, it's an easy thing to do. It does not check these every time a material gets changed, because that could really slow down, especially if you're scraping your entire project because you don't have a search folder assigned on one of them. So we do expect you to kind of keep this in sync, but again, it'll kind of warn you most of the time. I mean, it won't warn you that changes have been made because it's not that smart, but you can hit refresh as you make changes to your stuff. So you want to keep these with the materials you're working on. But that workflow is pretty straightforward. And I've done this on a bunch of projects. We used a similar but less fancy version of this on Archer Dangerphone. And then I've used it on a couple things that are in development currently to good success. So there you go. Any questions or concerns or thoughts, let me know in the comments, and enjoy.